So everybody be warned. Yeah, I've served in the army when we used to give these training speeches and somebody would fall asleep, we would make him stand up and stay up for the rest of the tuition. So if you fall asleep, be prepared. Yeah, I'm trying to do my best to not make you fall asleep. I'm Florian. I'm a co-founder, CEO of BRAVOCOMPANY. We're based in East London. We call the stuff that we do coffee break esports, competitive, skill-based, real-time multiplayer, team-based games that you can play in 4-minute sessions. It's really different from the traditional way of thinking of both of hardcore games or esports in general. It's all about not being pre-appointed. It's all about not being pre-committed to certain times. But once you're in, it's ultra demanding in terms of your skills, in terms of your attention. But once you've done your 4 minutes, you're free to go or come back or play another one. We have 2 studios, one in London, one in Seoul. We're funded by, I guess you can say, leading angel and venture capital investors. Wargaming CEO is invested, King CEO is invested, Index Ventures, Initial Capital. We are 24 mostly humble and hopefully skilled people who really, really love what they do. It's the story that you're going to see is one of passion, of love for craftsmanship, of creating entertainment for people. Yeah, let's go into this. Forces of Freedom. This is a slightly edited mock-up screenshot that shows the kind of target visual quality of the game that we're after. There's a 5 versus 5 real-time multiplayer squad combat game with historically accurate soldiers. This is really important. Just think of wargaming, how they are creating machines that become heroes that you aspire to own, that you aspire to become, like the crew of that tank. In our game, it's about humans, it's about being a real-life soldier who could basically have just walked out of a battlefield into the game. At the moment, you can choose from 3 different nations and 3 different classes. We have scouts, snipers, and automatic riflemen. To give you a quick look, this video is a bit old, looks slightly better now, but shows the flow of the gameplay. So today, after a good 16 months in early access, we've seen 21 million entirely organic installs and counting, around a couple of million monthly actives. We're not so much after these type of vanity metrics, even though when they're good, we're using them. What we're really after is how do people behave who play the game? How long do they play when they come back? How do they spread their sessions during the day? And right now we see about an hour average of playtime daily per player, and that's still in early access. The game has absolutely no retention mechanics, no push notifications, no lock-in bonus, no progression, no meta actually. It's just 2 maps and 5 soldiers that you can play. The whole thing actually started with a massive disaster. We were a bunch of engineers and myself who had tried to make a messaging app. The idea was to make a messaging app with avatars that you could use to express your feelings. Great idea. We then iterated the app after we had launched it to a point where it had absolutely no users left. It was just absolutely mind-blowing. What you see on the very right is our people discovery concept, where you would tap on the screen and one of these little characters would fall down from the screen, and then you could start to interact with that person to see if you want to have some chat with that person. Now, the funny thing was there were no users, so we basically spawned bots, and obviously you can imagine where that led, namely to immediate death of the app. Yeah, and then there was the point where we really got together and thought, hey, what went wrong here? We have built something that nobody ever wanted. We've built something that we didn't even know who we were building it for, and we after a few drinks we said we're gonna kill this. We're gonna do better. And the question was really at that time, how can we make sure we don't fail again? Failing is common. Most products actually fail. What you make from that failure is what makes the difference. And for us, it makes the difference of folding as a company and staying alive at that time. So we went back to the good old startup 101, and when you're trying to do something, and that I would say right now is true for any games developer as well, it's about reaching product market fit. You need to know who are you making something for, what do you offer to that person, what problem are you solving for that person, what need does that person have that isn't solved yet, and then you make a value proposition and you provide a feature set to solve that problem, and then you get feedback from the customer and you try to make that better. We kind of apply that startup textbook thinking here. We said we want to make a game for busy people who used to play pre-appointed games. People who played console shooters, PC shooters, but whose game room nowadays is a nursery, who are busy working, but who always have a few minutes here and there to play a couple of minutes. And for these people, there was no truly born on mobile shooter at the time. Most implementations of shooting games were either PC games squeezed down to a mobile phone or some duck hunting tap-tap style games which weren't really skill-based. So we said, okay, we're going to offer a skill-based shooter that can be played in 4-minute sessions. The feature set was 5v5, 3 classes, authentic soldiers starting in the 1960s. And the philosophy was we're starting with minimum viable, go to minimum awesome, like very few features but slightly polished, and then go to maximum awesome. As long as we can afford it, we're going to invest in this product, we're going to keep it going. The starting point was really, let's make the core experience fun. It doesn't make sense to build meta games and progression systems and whatnot if your core game loop is crap. And we thought all that we care about from here is the core experience. And as funny as it may sound, since the early access launch already 16 months ago, we have done nothing but that. We've just concentrated on making the core game experience better and ultimately technically scalable and stable. Okay, when I'm looking at this is how we started. Like the worst idea ever. It was a user interface where you would have to wait till the bar is green before you fire the shot. Entirely unusable. But in any case, there were 4 people, 3 engineers and myself in one room for 4 months wearing all hats. We were designing, building, prototyping, testing at the same time. The first level that ended up being fun was done by myself, even though I have absolutely no level design experience. There was no sprint planning. It was just 4 months of pure chaos and anarchy. And why did we have to do it this way? Because we were out of money after 4 months. We had basically one shot to get something done that would convince the investors to give us more money. Funny enough, after 4 months, we reached this, dude, this is awesome milestone. That is how the game looked like. We had to do a play session with our investors. We made sure that the investor got a headshot. So I was jumping up on the hill, taking a bullet in the head for the team. You can see on this screen, my hair was almost shoulder long by then. We had absolutely just focused on reaching that milestone. And then I get this iMessage from the guy at Initial Capital saying, dude, this is awesome. And they said, actually, all right, we're going to give you guys more money. It's a total no case for any other investors. They're just 4 programmers who want to make a groundbreaking real-time multiplayer shooter game. You should see faces of VCs who see that team coming to you and said, yeah, we want to make that shooter. We're just 4 people. And anyway, what happened instead was that one of the investment partners at Initial Capital paid our salary privately for 9 months. He never got anything in return, no shares, no interest, nothing. He just said, I want to give these guys a chance. I believe this can work. And he kept us going until we were able to raise a proper seed round. So we were fast-forwarding a little bit. We said we wanted to go into the hands of consumers faster than with the messaging app. We want to be player-driven. We call our players our co-developers. And the question there was, how do we find our best early access or early feedback players? And we had this idea of patient zeros. We thought of there must be some people who really should like this game. No matter how shit it looks, if it is fun, there will be at least a core amount of people who should absolutely like it. The first guy on the left is my platoon mate from World of Tanks Blitz. So I messaged him, I said, dude, we're making this shooter, you used to play Counter-Strike, you're playing World of Tanks Blitz, you should try the game. This was our first player ever. On the next image, you see some guys that we found at an outdoor festival. I'm going to explain a little bit more about that in a minute. We went to military bases to play with the US Marines there. We went to, with some little online ads, we looked after Army cadets who became our first tester. It was all about people who should be somehow up for some team play, like the military, like the uniforms, like the whole fun about shooting each other. Yeah, and that was how, this is basically the base of the first 20 players that we found. Then the next question you have to ask yourself, after we took their initial feedback into account, and it was immediately stuff like, I want to have custom controls, I want to be able to do this or that. It was never about, I want better graphics, or I want this or that. It was all about user experience, which was great feedback, because I met a guy yesterday from Bohemia. He said, well, visual stuff you can always fix, but if you don't have magic in your product, and if there's no fun in your product, that's unfixable, right? So you either find it or you don't, and that's the big stuff that you can't do with business school knowledge. It's the ultimate creative process that makes or breaks good games in the first place. So we then went out to this Airsoft Festival. You have to imagine 2,000 people in one place for 3 days, basically dressed up as soldiers, shooting each other with toy guns during the day. That's a hobby that people have, and they spend a lot of money on that. And we thought, what could be a better audience than an Airsoft Festival for a shooting game that is team-based and comes with modern military? So we rented basically a van, got sorry, I'm going to show that in a second. We got a tent and some camouflage nets from one of our first players' uncles, who was a Navy veteran, and he said, okay, I'm going to help you guys out with some military stuff and a Land Rover. I had never seen the guy in my life, and he shows up at this Airsoft Festival, and we have all this booth set up. And it was really mind-blowing, because people were playing for 7 hours spread over 3 days. They came to this festival to play Airsoft, but they ended up playing Forces of Freedom, which until today I found pretty bizarre. Quick video to show the atmosphere at this place. So when we speak today about having been in the trenches to get this game out, that's what we did. Our QA tester literally slept in the van with a handbrake in his ass, okay? That's how far we went to get this thing out to the players. But what was crucial there is, first of all, the people from all ages started playing the game, from kids to dudes. We changed the location a little bit later on to make people feel more comfortable. Older guys don't like to sit on beanbags. It's these simple things that makes a difference at these events. There was a player who was just watching this for a while and said, yeah, I don't like mobile games. I play Counter-Strike competitively. And then he started playing it, and he played for 1.5 hours. And I have this video of him where he's like, after he headshot somebody. And you can't fake this stuff, right? It either happens or it doesn't. And we went back with 200 signups for closed testing. 200 people out of 2,000, which I find, with 3 days of investment, you would think 200 people isn't a lot of people, but it's 200 people who really, really wanted this game and really want to move it forward. And I will explain shortly how that audience actually helped to get further out. Because then, obviously, the question when you have validation and good feedback from your first few hundred players is like, how do you move this forward? How do you scale? And there is, funny enough, there is this marketeer prejudice where people tell you community doesn't scale. I think this is completely wrong. You can scale with a community-given product if you manage to find ambassadors, if you build a community where the community starts helping each other out, and if you do that properly, community does scale. And we have hundreds of thousands of people in our closed groups right now who are interacting with each other. Nevertheless, at this point, the question was, how can we get this to a bigger audience, not relying on poor me talking to people how awesome our game is individually. So we found Google Early Access, which is basically the place to go with an unfinished game. Google was very helpful. They said, well, this is exactly what this program is for. Give us something unfinished. You get private feedback, not public 1-star ratings and reviews. And you can make your game better. And once you think the time is ready, you can then actually launch it into the public store. We made a mistake after a couple of months and launched it into the public store by mistake, which is very easy to be done. So if you ever go into early access, be careful that you don't mistakenly launch into the public store. And Anyway, after we did that, we actually got good ratings and even more organic traffic and Google ranking traffic, which actually ended up helping us. Anyway, now the question obviously is, you are on this store, but it's not that millions of people go to the Google Early Access category to find fresh games, right? It's a good category, but it's not so that busy people have just waited for you to pop up and make a shooting game that they've been waiting for. So the question here was, how do we get noticed? And I'll never forget it. We were out on Google Early Access in Turkey, in some small markets, like this typical free-to-play soft launch thinking. And one of our players, a girl, funny enough, from the Airsoft Festival, came up and said, "Hey, Captain," that's my nickname because I was a captain in the army. "Hey, Captain, I have an idea. There are these Discord shooting communities, and why don't I just go there and tell people that this game exists?" And I said, "Yeah, why not, right?" We hadn't really thought about any plan. We just thought, let's see if somebody finds the game, quite naively. Now, that woman goes out, and at this time we had a push notification. Whenever somebody was online, like firefighters, we would jump on the server and play with a new player that would come up. And the moment she starts going out on Discord, like ding, 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 couple of hundred people just joining the server. Now, what was amazing there is that in these Discord communities, there are people, I call them the micro YouTubers. They have 7,000, 10,000 subscribers, but those are 7,000 to 10,000 subscribers that love shooting games. And they had been waiting for something new in that genre. And all of a sudden, we get all these videos popping up from, like, again, small subscribers, 10,000. Each video until today has maybe 30,000 views or something, but totally enough to seed the plant. And after a week, a YouTuber with 300,000 subscribers from Spain put the game up on his YouTube channel, uploads the APK to a file sharing site because it wasn't available anywhere, and within 3 days we got like 25,000 people from Latin America coming into the game. We were like, I remember how the concurrent users number all of a sudden popped up, and we could see clans forming in Latin America. There's no clan functionality. You can't even play with your friends or anything in the game. But we had clans that started making T-shirts, and people have fake tattoos with their clan logo and Forces of Freedom on their arms. And I kind of think that's very few games that have that kind of stuff without having that magic. So yeah, 25,000 players in 3 days. And since then, it's really been just talk to the players, listen to them, engage, update the game as much as possible, improve it. It's very hard. The moment we stop updating it for a couple of weeks, for example, we do a back-end improvement and the whole team has to concentrate on something, our community pops up and they will start posting goodbye videos, and they have this, "I'm uninstalling the game, thank you Forces of Freedom for the great memories," and then they tag each other, and then the next day you see that the guy who retired yesterday just changed his username and he continues to play and that kind of stuff. It's really mind-blowing how that community kind of reacts. And we've just focused on making the game better. When we launched, we could see people were playing around 5 battles per day on average. Now they are at 14. The ones that we call the core segment of people, a few million who really digging it, they're playing up to 20 battles. That's 90 minutes for a game that is basically still just a game demo. Yeah, and basically last week, just in time for the talk, so the actual announcement was right, we crossed 20 million players who've tried the game. For us, it's super important. We don't think we have in any ways made it. We've partly luckily stepped into something good. We are capitalizing on it. We're hiring. We're staffing people. We really have worked hard on getting the code and the project into a scalable format. But we want to stay humble and appreciative of the perception that we've received. So we just created this little video that I'm unveiling here for the first time. The 20 million download video. It's true to the way we've been presenting us. Our first trailer started with the words, "Fake trailers are crap." So we're just showing you our game, and it was just over-the-shoulder filming, nothing faked. We wouldn't have had money to fake anything anyway, so we had no choice but to be honest and over the shoulder. Anyway, this is this.
Whoa! Guys! We just broke 20 million downloads!
So we have 5 soldiers, 3 maps, one of them's halfway done. We shouldn't really celebrate. We should get back to work.
So basically this video shows all the stuff that is going to come for the end of the year. I can't wait to see the community reacting to it, because there's a lot of things that they've been asking for. Maps, weapons, soldiers, new interface, a challenge system where you unlock new stuff. Yeah, that's that. Final comment before we go into questions. We're hiring. Any backend senior guys, please find yourself to the right hand of the stage. I'm going to take you to London straight away. Senior developers, Unity experienced, character artists, animators, data analysts, and generally great, humble people with useful skills who generally want to challenge conventions. That's how we started. We said, let's try something new, let's try something innovative. That process is never done. You keep learning, you keep looking at yourself. How can we be better than yesterday? Yeah, and if you think this would be something for you, find me here or send me an email. And now over to you guys. Questions I'll be answering as honest as I possibly can.
Hi, thank you. How do you make money?
Well, we're in this comfortable situation that we don't have to make money just yet. The investors have given us investment allowing us to make the game better, and it will be the deciding year in 2019 where we can find out if anybody is willing to pay for it. We originally thought we were just releasing a World of Tanks style meta game where you proceed from one decade to another. That we thought that was a great idea about 3 years ago when we started, but nowadays when you see how games start monetizing, who don't have timers, energy mechanics, free XP conversions, boosters and that kind of stuff, knowing that people play this game for 90 minutes if they like it, we are thinking we need to do something that doesn't interfere with skill-based, it doesn't interfere with the beauty of fair competitive gameplay, and so we are thinking about concepts that will monetize through variety, through play styles, through skins, and these kind of things. We're now crafting soldiers who have a very distinct skill set and resource set. For example, you might have a character who can throw a grenade, but he can only throw it in a certain angle. The other character will roll the grenade, which gives you a totally different playstyle, and we will have a roster of such heroes. And increasingly, we're working with real-life military people. We've signed up guys from SAS to Delta Force, to even celebrities who've written books and are very, very well respected in the community, and we're presenting these characters almost like sports stars in the game.
Any plans regarding iOS, or it's only will be Android completely?
We have iOS test flight. The way Apple works with mobile games is ever so slightly different from Google. If we had come with this unfinished thing, they wouldn't have supported it. They want polished, keynote-ready things. It's a different model, and I can really recommend if you do mobile and you want really good insights and where do you players come from and what keywords have they been using to find you and how much does your store listing conversion rate compare to the other titles that are on there or to the genre in general, the Play Store value proposition for developers is really good. And Apple, then you go there when you're like, hey, we're ready to wow a keynote presentation with you guys. Which in our topic is hard, right? You know, like military, like very authentic, and it's unlikely the stuff that you would see in Cupertino at a keynote anyway. And ultimately now we're in the stage where things go really viral. We have a lot of word of mouth, referral traffic. You see people inviting an entire classroom of friends to come in and play. So I would expect that when we open up iOS, we will get some significant organic traffic through just by being there, and then the rest will just follow.
Can you disclose what budget you have for this game overall to completion?
Well, look, to be honest, we never had a budget. We had, when we started, we had £70,000 left, and we just somehow dragged us to that next milestone. Yeah. Then we tried to raise as much money as we could, and we raised $1 million. And last year in June, we were again out of money, and we had not started any proper fundraising. We just thought at the moment we have enough data to make our case, someone is going to kind of discover us and give us a chance. And what happened was that Index Ventures from London had been following us for a while, and they said, look, we are looking for teams who've been going to the absolute extreme in order to make their product happen. And we closed a Series A from them, which is a couple of £1 million. And let's see how far we get with that. Maybe next year I'm gonna like have a post-mortem why we failed or something. I don't know. No, but the reality is like it now starts to really pay off. People are approaching us and say, "This is impressive what you guys did. How can we help you further?" But there is no budget. You know, it's like we're just trying to make this thing better and hope we'll be profitable before we run out of money.
And maybe just as a follow-up question, have you guys thought about Kickstarter or something like that?
Yes, we have. We actually met with a guy who's a consultant to run Kickstarter campaigns, and unless you have something that is physically, like brutally tangible and people can immediately see what it is, or you are, I don't know, Sid Meier, who's created whatever type of game and wants to make his new thing, and you're a brand of your own, the guy recommended you better monetize through the game directly because you have that audience, because Kickstarter itself, he said, doesn't really provide you its own traffic. It doesn't come with its own audience. You need to bring your traffic. And why would I bring traffic to an external platform if I can monetize through the game directly anyway? But we said we're staying away from monetization, we're staying away from ads until we think the game is good enough in order for people to actually be, for us to be entitled to ask money from people. But I would say like the case here is obviously unusual. I don't think it would work for everybody. But the key thing that I want to transmit is if you know what you're making and for whom you're making it for, and you get reassurance along the way, you need to cut through the bullshit that everybody tells you. When we started this, venture capital people would tell us you cannot do investments into mobile gaming anymore. The cost of lifetime values versus cost per installs versus lifetime value is kind of not allowing any business. And my answer to this was, well, if everybody makes the same game and everybody competes for the same players with performance marketing, of course nobody makes money anymore, right? Be different. Appreciate someone who might find a use case for your game who doesn't have much alternatives. And at the time we started, it was that type of game, that slower paced tactical thing. There was only World of Tanks Blitz, and which comes with its own problem because tanks are not as massively popular around the world as special forces. That's common knowledge, right?
How did you come up with the idea for that game? I mean, you showed one slide, but after your initial project had failed, which was the messaging app, far away from what you guys do right now.
Okay, my favorite anecdote, really. So when we started, we thought, okay, I read the Lean Startup, which gives you this great toolbox of things that you should be doing, and we created 3 fake landing pages for apps. One was it was a kind of match dating type of app, and we had 3 value propositions, and people would sign up for a fake landing page in order to signal us that there is interest for that type of app. Unfortunately, an astrology app won this with 10% click-through rate, and we just said we don't want to do it, right? But I had been watching myself being a gamer. I played about 5,000 battles on World of Tanks on PC. I've played by now 33,000 battles in Blitz. I've unlocked every single tank in this game by playing. And I asked myself, why am I doing this? Because I can fit it into my lifestyle. I played 10, 15 minutes in the bathtub in the morning. I'm playing 5 minutes before my lunch break, 5 minutes after my lunch break, or 7 minutes, that's a World of Tanks battle. And in the evening, when my wife goes to sleep earlier, I'm playing 10, 15 battles in a row, right? That was my habit. And I was thinking about people in my proximity, my friends who used to be console players. They come from work, they switch on their console, they realize the controller isn't charged, okay. They update the firmware, they put in the disc, and by the time they even get to the first game, you already have played 1 or 2 battles in Forces of Freedom. So the idea was to give that type of experience to people, but in this kind of typical fragmented mobile lifestyle way. So World of Tanks was the inspiration for it. I admit it, and everybody knows it. And it's interesting because many games who've been very successful haven't been reinventions, right? They have just been very smart modifications of something that existed. Clash of Clans is ultimately a Facebook game, Backyard Monsters, that was brought to mobile. League of Legends is sort of the better Dota, so to speak. And so we thought, well, if we take that kind of feeling, tactical, slow-paced gameplay and combine it with modern infantry, which is more popular, we have a shot.
Short follow-up question. Mm-hmm. You said you guys haven't really launched any monetization strategy yet. I mean, you're sort of like conceptualizing it right now as we speak. But the question is, I mean, judging from your slides, it seems that you guys went for like an interest-based audience, so you're not targeting any specific gender or age groups, but basically people who have certain interest in certain topics. Mm-hmm. Do you think this could have an impact on the monetization, looking, in the future, assuming maybe they're gonna be like 15-year-old kids who like shooting but don't necessarily have any money or are willing to spend?
No, I'm thinking I should have gone to the fortune teller at the speaker dinner yesterday. There was one Chinese fortune teller. This is what entrepreneurs do, right? They try. We have a long list of things, some stuff that has never been done in games that we think can work, and at this moment we have funding until way into 2020. We have enough time to figure it out, and if we don't figure it out by 2020 with that traction and that engagement, then we don't deserve further success. That's it, right? So I have no answer. Yes, I will find out.
Great talk. Thanks, Florian. What are the 3 things that you would do differently since you started Forces of Freedom? I'm not going to let you choose the messaging app as one of those 3 things. So after you already pivoted.
No. I would still do the messaging app. There's like, look, when you fail with something and you learn why you failed, you're much better prepared for the next journey, right? It's so easy to say afterwards what I've done differently. Had I known, I wouldn't have launched in February. I would have spent 4 months on making it even better and polish it even further before we're putting it out. But I still think a large part of the organic success is the timing of the title being out. PUBG actually came to the market and started to uplift us further. The whole appreciation of 3D twin stick type of gaming on the platform being us forward. I don't know, I don't look this way. Like what would you do differently? Because I can't change it anyway. I rather look at it and say, what have I done back then? If I'm facing a similar constellation, how do I make sure that I don't go down the route that I've been down before? So I don't really have 3 things. There's so many things that we've done wrong. But everything happens for a reason, When our engineer pushed that button where he mistakenly deployed the thing into the full category, we really thought we're doomed. We hadn't secured our investment. We thought now we're in early access. Now we're getting 1-star ratings, and people will like everything is going to collapse. We're out of the early access category. Instead, we got more traffic through Google ranking, and all of a sudden we showed up in top 50 action games categories and these things. So, no regrets.
Thanks. I was just wondering what kind of a internet marketing or community management operation did you guys have? Like, do you have many people working on that? Like, how much time and effort you put in that?
24/7.
Oh dear.
No, okay, more seriously. There is a video recording from last year's 4C where I'm going into details about these things. We integrated a Facebook Messenger connectivity to our Facebook page in the game. And literally we were receiving, like from day one, we were receiving thousands of messages. And it was mainly me answering all of them in person. Then we got some volunteers from the community who started helping out. At some point we realized, okay, they're asking the same questions over and over again. When can we get more soldiers, more weapons? Everybody who's made a shooter knows what kind of questions these people ask. So we actually integrated a bot who said, look, click, 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 more weapons in the future, more soldiers in the future. If you have more questions, join our community. And then we're providing a link to a closed Facebook group, which now has around 120,000 members. And we collect them there and make sure the community can self-serve. We've also used Discord in combination with streaming sessions. Every Monday we have a little show called Thank God It's Monday. It's the producer and I were playing with our players. It's a bizarre thing because we know some of them by name, and when they kill one of us, they start posting screenshots and that kind of stuff. It's stuff that doesn't scale. It's super small, but there may be 10,000 people who watch this thing and 100 concurrent viewers. But it's this backbone of our community that we're engaging with. Yeah. So and I personally think the whole Discord live streaming ecosystem for a game developer is as revolutionary as the App Store. We used to be forced to go through gatekeepers to release our content, right, in physical distribution. We used to be forced to spend a lot of money on performance marketing and remarketing engagement and these kind of things. But now we have our own TV channel to re-engage with players, and we have Discord that allows us to channel topics and conversations with almost directly with the customers. So yeah, that's the key platforms.
Yes, so I have a question. You mentioned several times Discord, which is one of the probably best tools for the communities, for the niche games. And what do you think about Reddit? Because for me as a player, yes, Reddit probably much more convenient.
Yeah. Look, Reddit, this is the moment when I always feel old, right? I'm looking at it and just like Twitter, I'm like what is it with people? What are they doing there? I just don't get it. We're fixing that actually. We've just appointed a head of player experience who professionalizes us across this whole level. What I've been told about Reddit is that you can't really make it. You can just like follow it and engage with it once it happens, and you're present in something that the crowd has actually created, rather than being a platform that you control, moderate, and ultimately have authority over. So we're very good at admitting our weaknesses. Reddit is this thing that I know it can be big, it can make you like known, etc. It's just we haven't paid much attention to it just yet. I know there are a couple of threats flying around, and we've seen people, especially coming from complaint threats from other shooting games, like a sniper game that has, I don't know, introduced some mean pay-to-win mechanic, and then all of a sudden these guys come over to us and they find the link to the game there. But there is no such thing as a real official presence there just now.
I have one question for you. Did you have some moment during the game's development or testing when the community had a severely negative feedback to a certain change, and how did you cope with that?
Yes. We released an update in February where we nerfed the sniper, and we knew we had to nerf it because so many people were playing sniper. It was just hopelessly overpowered. And God, we released this update, and the next day our ratings for that day when we released that update went down to, I don't know, 3 point something. It was it was mind-blowing, and people were posting uninstall videos, etc., etc., etc. That was really hard, but we said, look, we're doing it because we know what we're going to the game in a few months when we're adding secondary functionalities to the soldiers. You have to sometimes break it in order to make it happen and to make it better. And funny enough, most of the players, except for the worst trolls, and I've received messages where I started removing my family connections from Facebook because I thought these people are psychos, and we actually literally manually hunted these guys down and made sure they could never ever play the game again, right? Because that kills the community and kills the game, right? If people are telling you which kind of instruments of their own body they're going to put in what hole of your body, it's like they're crossing a line where you think like this is really not necessary, guys. It's a video game, right? But anyway, the coping with it was sometimes you just need to be firm and do it. I think everybody who's worked in a multiplayer game will confirm if your data tells you you need to do it. It's just swallow it, people. We're going to make it better. And a few weeks later, when you see that the class distribution has changed, that snipers are still good, but they're playing in a different region of the map, they're no longer commando running across the entire map as they used to before, you know you did the right thing. And in the end, when you then see that you've improved your engagement by 33% with a single update, then later on, it shows that you're doing the right thing. I don't know, I yet have to meet somebody who tells me we nerfed a class and then we kind of entirely reversed it. People, you nerf and then you kind of power up a little bit, but never back to the original level. If you have to do that, I think the whole idea was wrong. Yeah. But there are many wargaming people here. They should have been through nerfing and balancing and those challenges. We might want to ask these guys. I would actually like to. So.
Hi, Florian. Congrats. How we are dealing with the cheaters?
Yeah. So, big weakness. This is the one thing I would do differently. Had I known that within the first 100 players we would have 3 Hitlers, and I'm not making this up, we had to rename them manually. Actually, originally we couldn't even rename them. We had to go into the game and shoot them, so they couldn't show up in the game. Cheaters came like, you get them within your first few thousand people, and the game wasn't really prepared for it. It's a constant, you're fixing a hole that they come through, they are finding the next hole. All you can do is try to have resources to keep them out, right?
You are not using anything like the third-party service?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. And you have peer-to-peer or a dedicated server?
Dedicated service. And not yet fully authoritative. There are still some things where they find the loopholes. That was one of the decisions where we just had to like finish it and get it out, even though we knew it wasn't perfect. If I would have to choose again, knowing what I know now today, I would have waited for another 2 months and integrated something at least basic in order to deal with that. Because cheaters, they just fuck up your multiplayer experience. They come in, you see the concurrence going down, you see the number of battles getting played, and then all of a sudden you're finding one of them who's gained 50,000 places in rankings through 15 battles, and you're like, oh, this is where I really get personal. I mean, come on, it's annoying, right? You're spending your life at the edge, right? I've been spending my savings in order to get this done, and some asshole comes in and hacks the game and tries to boost his ego by landing precise headshots. That's just, yeah, it is what it is in the end. But how do you deal with cheaters? You have scale multiplayer games running. I would be interested in that.
Yes, and we have peer-to-peer, so it's even worse. But we tried to use Fairfight. It didn't work well, and we are using some techniques, like the MD5, or we are trying to identify users. It's like the mostly manual work, trying to find them.
Yeah.
Not easy.
Okay. Well, we had a few funny tools. There's when people have to shrink their dispersion circle manually, and each soldier has a certain minimum value, and we would detect if somebody got below that value, the server was able to detect that and kick and auto ban. But then they found something else. And it's a permanent hunt. If you want to do something with multiplayer and skill-based, it will require dedicated resources. Almost sometimes even manual hunting. And the community is super helpful. They post videos, they report. We've basically trained the community how a proper cheater report has to look like so we can deal with it.
So maybe one thing, you don't ban them immediately. Wait a little bit so they don't know why you are banning them.